I've got a lot of books about Disney and theme parks, as you can see if you just look at my shelves. And there's a lot that aren't on the shelves either. But I have several that stand out as my favorites, and if I was going to point people to books, these are the ones I would show them first. I have a lot of books about theme parks and roller coasters. I'm going through several of these right now, but my overall favorites I'm saving for the very end. So hold on for that and you'll see which book that, if I had to say any certain book was an absolute must, it'll be the last one. Some of the very first ones I got were these. In fact, at the time that I really started getting into coasters, in the mid 90s, just before 2000, this was actually one of the most popular roller coaster books out there. David Bennett at the time, if you were a roller coaster geek, you had this book more than likely somewhere. It's got a couple errors in it, and it's obviously showing its age now after over 20 years. But that was one of the very first ones. And right along with that would come these two. And again, published at the same time, roller coaster geeks at that time basically kind of had a little bit of a renaissance. And you could find these out there. They're long out of print now. You can probably find them used. But Bob Coker's was wonderful. Bob actually ran the rollercoaster.com site for a long time. And the email list that I ran originally started on his site, going way back there. That's some old coaster history. But more than roller coasters, Disney really stands out. And as I've gotten into the parks more and behind the scenes, there are a number of books that I've really collected over the years that have just become my favorites and my go-tos. One of my favorites is from Marty Sklar. Marty Sklar is actually one of the Imagineers. He was at Disneyland's opening and designed the original souvenir book. If you want to get a good look at some of the original thought behind Disney and what it was like and Imagineering, pick up Marty Sklar's book, Dream It, Do It. Great book. He's got a couple others as well that are also a lot of fun, but that one's my favorite of his. If you're going to want to know a little bit about what it's like in the parks, these are always some fun ones. The Secret Stories of Walt Disney World has a lot of fun in it. Some really neat stories. Disney's original plans for Figment, for example. How the popularity of Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach actually meant the closure of the other water park that was there, and a number of really neat behind-the-scenes stories that are in here. Jim Korkis is a great Disney historian and actually has a huge series of books, behind the scenes, questions answered, and stuff like that. If you find anything by Jim Korkis, you're going to do just fine in getting some really neat Disney information. Definitely bookmark him. Robert Niles has a really neat little book too called Stories from a Theme Park Insider. And again, just a lot of fun, a lot of normal questions here. He's the one who founded themeparkinsider.com. If you look just at even the back of the book, you can see right off the bat, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? Yes, we got asked that all the time. He did spend 5 summers working at Walt Disney World and talks about what that was like, but also a number of other things. He's got some great information in it. Now, of course, if you're looking just for fun at the parks, you got to have your guide to the hidden Mickeys. There's one for Walt Disney World. There's also one for Disneyland. If you have been to the parks a lot or the resorts, this is a great way to find something new that you haven't noticed before. This particular book not just covers all 4 Walt Disney World parks, but it also has a big section for the resorts, the miniature golf, has pictures of a lot of them. So it's a great way to have a little bit of fun and do some hunting. This is something that if my family was sitting around the house on a day and, well, I don't know, what do we do today? Hey, let's go to the resorts and let's go hunt for hidden Mickeys. And we take our guide with us. It made it a lot of fun. This is one that actually one of my viewers sent me that was just an amazingly good read. It's usually sitting on my shelf right up here. But From Dreamer to Dreamfinder is a fantastic story of the guy who brought Dreamfinder to life in the parks originally. It talks about his career, not just as Dreamfinder and working at Disney, but working at Universal as well, helping to create a restaurant and a number of things. Just a neat biography of somebody's career in the theme parks, but that also lets you get a feel for behind the scenes and what it's like. And I really, really enjoyed this read. And it's funny because it came from the same guy who sent me the shirt. Thanks, Barry! If you want to know about these things, because I have people ask about the shirts, where'd you get the shirt? You got to watch my live streams, okay? That's all I'll tell you. Watch the live streams. You'll see the shirts. One other book that any Disney lover really needs is one of these as well. There are a number of different versions out there. This is the 2015 version. There is a new updated one. Dave Smith was the Disney archivist for many years, basically established the Disney archives. If you ever get to see Walt Disney's office laid out, Dave Smith is the one that categorized it and made sure it was all noted. But this is an amazing book. It's not necessarily one you're going to read cover to cover, although you might be weird like me and do it. But it's all A to Z. It is an encyclopedia. It's got timelines, it's got articles, and just an amazing book that covers just about everything Disney. It's a book that I think the people running the parks now really ought to familiarize themselves with, along with Marty Sklar's book called One Little Spark I have hiding up here. You guys need to figure out what Disney's supposed to be like, not what you're doing to it. But a fantastic book, though, that is just an in-depth resource if you want to know much of anything about the Disney movies and properties and characters, and it's in here. Amazing book. One of the other things you'll notice if you look at my shelves is I have a lot of souvenir books. This whole shelf is just filled with them. And I absolutely love them, but one of my favorites is probably this one. This is one I actually picked up at Disneyland Paris, and this is actually its book cover right over there. Just an amazing book. You can see it's huge. I love a lot of the souvenir books. They fill my shelves. I've actually got them in the cabinet, but this one just goes above and beyond. What's really cool about this book is it is actually bilingual. It has parts in both English and French, so you can actually read the book regardless of which language you know. And the illustration is just amazing. The photography that they do in it, the history of the park. It's probably the best souvenir book I have seen for a park, especially a Disney one. Just an amazing book. Oh, anybody else love the fresh smell of paper? It's got a great smell to it. I know. I'm sorry. That's weird. It even includes a commemorative passport in it. Just an amazing book. It really is one of my favorites that I've picked up at the parks over the years. And I don't know if Disney still has them. This was actually a little bit more expensive book. I think it was like 50 or 60 US dollars at the time, which is more than I usually pay for a souvenir book, but just an amazingly cool book. I've got some great souvenir books, but this is probably my favorite of them. And then my last ones, I actually have 4 books by this author. I think he's actually got 6. And this is the very first author, the very first book I ever bought that showed behind the scenes at the theme parks. And what it was like was this one. Mouse Tales by David Koenig. Disneyland as you've never seen it. I want to be honest, these books are probably... They're not quite PG-13, but they do talk about a couple things that are definitely a little more on the adultish side, shall we say. Not in language, but they talk about situations the cast members have had to deal with, including people doing things at the parks that aren't real cool. It does talk about a couple of the deaths that have happened at the parks. It gives a lot of behind-the-scenes information on what it's like to be there and things that Disney doesn't generally talk about. This book was so well done and so popular that he actually followed it up with more Mouse Tales. And again, the same kind of thing, how Disney Imagineers create the Haunted Mansion, what it's like to work in the parks, more revelation, why Disney really closed the Skyway tram ride, the submarine voyage, the Mike Fink keel boats. A lot of those kinds of stories are in here. Great stuff. If you want to know behind the scenes at Disneyland in particular, David Koenig's the one to go to. He's also got an interesting story, Secrets of the Disney Animation and Theme Parks. And again, talking about the movies and how they were made and coming into the parks. Fun book. Not quite as good as the other 2 Mouse Tales, but definitely a fun book worth picking up. And then if you want to know about the legal side, people constantly talk about Disney getting sued and does it have an effect on the parks? There's this one. And this, it's not quite as readable as the others, but the information in it is illuminating about how some of the dumb things that people have sued over and lost, and the ones that they've actually won on, and the impact it had in the parks to help avoid those situations. The People versus Disneyland is a great book to read. It'll give you some neat insights into the parks. If you're going to pick up only one book, I would say pick up Mouse Tales. That's, like I said, the first book I started with in Behind the Scenes, and then branch out to the others. Then go to anything by David Koenig, anything by Jim Korkis is going to be amazing, and go from there. So those are my favorite books and my favorite behind-the-scenes Disney authors. Do you have some favorite books of your own that I didn't mention? I'd love to hear about them, because I'm always looking for more books. I might actually have them still, I just didn't mention them today, but I'd love to hear them. Mention them in the comments below. I've also got a full list of most of my books that I have on my website, as well as on my Facebook page. I'll put a link in the description below for you, so that way you can get to those easy, along with links to a few of these. There's also links in the description to my fan pages, the equipment I use, and more information as well. I also want to give a huge shout out as well to my patrons, my members. Their financial support allows me to do so much, and I couldn't do it without them. There's also info about that in the description too. Thank you so incredibly much for watching. God bless. And have fun reading! A lot of fun if you have... This is actually a book. There's a couple different versions. This is the 2006 version, I believe. Okay, look at my copyright. Oh, sorry. Okay. It's a book that, honestly, I think some of the people around the parks now really need to kind of familiarize themselves with. Along with Marty Sklar's Burke. Yeah. And then my last ones... Yeah, don't drop the books. Do you have some I missed? I'd love to hear them. Leave them in the description below. In the description? No, leave them in the comment. Do you have some favorite books of your... If you want to know any... If you'd like to know about my merchandise, contact information, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of my videos, hit that button right there to subscribe. And if you want to see another one, well, I've got a great video for you right here. If you'd like to be like these wonderful people here too, and support me financially on Patreon or YouTube, well, hit that little button right there. It'll even give you behind-the-scenes access and more perks. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless.